please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, everybody? How are we doing this evening? I am just getting everything kind of finished and set up for what we're going to try to do tonight. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. How's everybody doing tonight? Already got quite a few people in here. Hopefully, everybody can hear me and all that good jazz. I'm going to work on this situation with this microphone being in the way. Um, there's just no real good way of doing it right now, but that's okay. Got a big show planned for everybody tonight. I think it's going to be really good. Let's see. Everybody hear me okay? Producer says she can hear me. I'm almost positive it's coming out of the laptop, though, and not the microphone. Does it sound like that?
I mean, let me see if I can hear myself.
But anyway, guys, drop your comments. Let me know that everybody can hear me and all that good stuff. I haven't seen any comments come through yet, so I want to make sure. It is? Okay, cool.
You're talking right as it was coming up.
Awesome. So here we go. Cool. Super strange. Nobody's commented yet. That's not normal. There we go. Phil's got me. What's up, Phil? How we doing, everybody? Everybody, drop if you're new here. I know we have quite a few people who were checking in and everything, and have been checking out the Scale Labs stream here lately. So our Scale Labs page in general. So if you guys are new, drop in the comment section wherever you're watching from, and let me know what you guys think and where you guys are from as well. So let me know where you're from, what your favorite track is, whatever it is. Drop that in the comments below, and let's talk about it. We'll get a few more people in here before we get started, but we got a great show planned. We actually have Ryan Ralph's full PT's setup that we're going to use, and we're going to use the top-down camera and kind of show everybody how we're going to go through everything. So I think it's going to be really, really good, and it'll be super informative to show people how we do things. So. I think it'll be really good. Trying to make sure I have everything. All of my tools and everything are right here below me. So there we go. Now we got all kinds of people in here. What is going on? Phil's already. Jeremy says sounds good. What's up? Josh Alvey's in here. Jackson Franklin's from Virginia. JD Sassy is from Royalton, Minnesota. Bill Holloway. Got our. I don't know if the first, but we got a Canadian in here. That's pretty cool. Going across borders. That's pretty sweet. Kevin Kinsey. What's up, Kevin? I've raced with Kevin before. What's up, man? Sharpsville, Indiana. Bill Holloway calls Delaware home. Very cool. Tracy runs at, let's see, his home track is the Barn Raceway in Waverly, Ohio. Mark Reynolds is from Vegas. Very cool. One of my favorite places to go. I love Las Vegas. I bet Las Vegas is perfect right now, too. It's not like scalding hot and doesn't make you want to feel like you're going to melt to the streets. I've been to Vegas when it's really, really nice out, and I've been to Vegas when it is like can't go outside until the sun goes down. Grain Valley, Missouri. Tim Grooms from SoCal. What's up, guys? How's everybody doing tonight? Appreciate it. Fast Lane Raceway, New Jersey. Ralph Cunningham. Very cool. Cool, guys. Well, we've got quite a few people in here. Got guys coming in and out. Let me do a couple more things while we're getting some more people in here, and we will get the show on the road here. And let's see. Let me get this guy kind of out of the way. There. Perfect. Awesome. There we go. Beautiful. Just got a few loose ends to tie up here, guys, that we can't really do until we get going live. So on some of this stuff. So, but all good. All good. There we go. I like that up there more anyway. Perfect. Tremont, Illinois, Cedar Bluff. Oh, that's Mitchell. Okay, yeah, Mitchell. We know you. Mitchell is Mitchell's awesome. He's a good dude. What is up to Mitchell? Hopefully, you guys going to be at PT's this weekend, Mitchell. Be curious to see that or to know that. I think long as work and everything permits, I'm going to make sure that I try to get out to PT's this weekend. So I'm super excited personally to get back over there and do some racing. Made some big strides this weekend, I think. So I'm super excited about that to kind of test what I've learned and keep going. So that'll be good. Oh yeah, and also if anybody doesn't know, the PT's Garage is this Sunday at PT's, so it's going to be a donation only. It doesn't cost anything to enter other than a donation, obviously, to the track, and it's kind of your prerogative on what the donation is, but should be really really good. I think that'll be really cool to. And I know that Tom Tennis from PTs, if you guys haven't seen the episode yet, he's episode 2, I believe, of the podcast. He came by and asked if I would be willing to run one of the stations. So I'm not even sure what station I'm going to be doing yet, but that'll be super cool to be a part of that. And also, Scale Labs is going to be there in a capacity and putting some stuff on YouTube so that you guys can go back and kind of watch that event. I think it'll be really good. So. That'll be super fun. Super fun. There we go. Cool. And then I believe producer Kaylee has put something in the comments for us as well. So there's kind of a link in there for everybody. So there it is right there. So. All right, guys. Well, we're going to get started here. We got a couple things that are semi up in the air with this, so we'll see if they come to fruition or not. Just meaning people's schedules and things like that. So we'll keep everything super fluid there. But what I want to do, and we're going to kind of be going back and forth on screens here, just so you guys know. But what we're going to do is simulate, we're going to actually do, but what I want to also do is simulate for anybody out there that's watching. The big thing that's going to be nice about this is I know there's a lot of people that always sees setup sheets get posted from either your local fast guy or somebody you respect or don't respect or whatever. But maybe a setup you want to try, but there's some things on there on the setup sheet that maybe may not make sense or may not. You may not know how to achieve that or how to measure that or whatever it is. So what we're going to do tonight is Ryan Ralph was kind enough. I reached out to Ryan, and over on his On the Box with Ryan Ralph Facebook page, he actually posted his setup sheet here for PTs when I believe he ran second or third at PTs after being gone for a long time. So he hadn't raced in quite a while. And yeah, so what we're going to do is first off, we're going to pull up a setup sheet and read through kind of what he's doing and how he's handling things and what he's writing down and how he's writing it down and what things mean on a GFRP assault setup sheet. And then from there, we're going to take my 26 assault and apply that to this car. And so what this is basically going to be able to do is show everybody that you can take a setup sheet anywhere you find on the internet from somebody that you trust or a reputable or even the baseline setup off of the GFRP website, whatever you need to do. and you'll be able to take that. And after tonight, hopefully, you'll be able to apply that setup to your own personal vehicle to where you can try things and get to know your car a lot more, but also understand how things work a little bit better. So, without further ado, let's see. So, I have the sheet here, and I want to make sure. So, I should be in here, and everybody should be able to still hear me. So, here is a screen share, screen grab of the setup sheet. And what I'm going to actually try to do is we'll zoom in a little bit, as long as producer Kaylee can still hear me. Oh, now it's from the microphone. Okay. Guys, when we run different microphones on here, I'm sorry, I apologize, but when we run different microphones, it makes things kind of strange sometimes. Or different camera angles rather. It pulls from different microphones and it makes it quite the bear at times. So let me actually set this up a little bit better. And what we can do is I can move this to this. And if I go here to here, audio, we can change it. It says it has it. That's the weird part. Okay. So let's change this now. So now I'm up in the corner. You guys got to deal with my ugly mug a little bit, but we can move things around. Kaylee can tell me if the sound switched back to bad. Hopefully it didn't. It did switch back to bad?
Still can hear it.
Okay. Well, what I can do then is I'm going to get this out of the way, and I'll talk a little bit louder, everybody. It's just a pain in the butt. Here, I don't want to do that because that's not fair to everybody to have bad sound. So
It's
here's
not bad.
here's what we're going to do. We'll do this. That's my ugly mug there, and then we can just put it straight onto desk view. And does that change the sound where it makes it quite a bit better right there? When I do this transition, hopefully that should help our sound out a little bit. The delay is killer. Okay. All right. So there we go, guys. And what we can do is I will transfer back and forth to make sure that you guys can see things more clearly back and forth here. But this is rather important. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to kind of, and if anybody has any questions, ask them live here, and just keep going. And what we will do is we will go back and forth to be able to answer questions kind of as we go. So anything you guys see here that you have a question about, kind of raise your hand, ask the question inside of the in the comments, and then we can go from there. Greg asked, what streaming service am I using? Right now, Greg, I'm using a service called EVMux, and I very much plan on switching. I just haven't quite got a chance to do that yet. Things have been rather busy, so just haven't got a chance to. But once I find something I like a little bit better, we're going to switch to that, because it shouldn't be this difficult to switch, and seems like we're always having audio issues. So, but that's okay. We've got it working now. Dylan Cook, what is up, man? Excited to see you this weekend, hopefully. So let me come back down here. Okay, Ryan says it's okay, guys. So Ryan was supposed to hopefully join us, but doesn't look like he's going to be able to. But he said he is in the comments, so that is good. Thank you, Ryan, for that. I appreciate you doing what you can. I understand totally. No big deal. I know I kind of threw it at you kind of last second, so no biggie. So okay, guys. So first off, let's understand this setup sheet a little bit. Oh, Greg okay, so Greg says he owns Mirage Raceway Park. Greg, send me a message over on the Scale Labs page after this, and we can kind of go from there, and I can kind of show you and tell you what I've learned, and I'd be happy to do that offline. So, okay, guys, here we go. So Ryan does things a little bit, I wouldn't say unorthodox, but something that is a little bit interesting that I've found to be pretty cool on his setups that I haven't seen a lot of people do, at least recently. So checking this setup sheet out, let's just start with the front and kind of go from there. So as you can see, this is a standard 26 assault setup sheet from GFRP. You can get it straight from the website and download it. It's super easy. If producer Kaylee wants to go on teamgfrp.com and pull that setup sheet, she can send a link, and she'll actually post a link in the comment section for the 26 assault. It's under the documents garage, and we will make sure that she puts that in the comment section. 6 assault. All the assaults are there together.
Instruction setup sheet. Got it.
And then if you could put that link or link that into there. Cool. All right. So anyway, guys, so we got front suspension here, and basically, so we kind of start top down. So he was running the 26 layback shock tower, and so where it's filled in right here, that's where the top shocks were mounted. Down here is where the shocks were mounted. The ball stud was put into the arm, and then here's where he measured droop, what arm plates he ran. So he had carbon arm plates on both arms, where his hub inserts are. So he had a +5 insert on the right front, a 0 standard insert on the left front, +5 on the right front, standard hubs across the front. Camber was +1 right front, -1 left front. And then Kaylee just put that in. Thank you very much. Then when we go over here to the bulkhead, the steering plate, he had the steering linkages all the way forward. And then we have ball studs are all the way in. Not all the way. You can actually run a ball stud here and here if you wanted to, but I'm going to call this all the way in where it's not with the mounting screws. And looks like on the left front, he had a 2mm spacer, and on the right front actually had a 3mm spacer underneath the ball stud right here. And then the camber link mount is high. So, and then what that means is I can actually, I'll try to zoom in here and show you guys, but that is the orientation in which the camber link is bolted in. And then so from there, it once we dive into the car, that'll make a lot more sense. Going down through here, and I'm speed running this right now, guys, but we will make sure that we kind of slow things down and go from there. But right now, we're just going over the basics of the setup sheet. So for shocks, he ran a number 5 spring in the front, number 6 in the rear. That those colors transition to 6s are greens, and fronts, the number 5s are reds, or either actually pink. And that's actually what I have on my car right now. So on bore S&B, obviously small bore versus big bore, he ran small bore shocks all the way around the car. Shock oil, shock oil he ran. So this is where it kind of gets interesting, and this is something that I'm excited to try, and I'm actually going to try this myself this weekend. Something that, so typically when I set a car up, I do across the front the same shock oil, and I do across the rear the same shock oil. So typically I'd do like 500 and 550 or 500 across the whole car, or 425 in the front, 500 in the rear, 550 in the front, 500 in the rear, whatever that is to get that feel. But what Ryan has actually done, and I find it super interesting, is his left front. So he did kind of a cross of shock oil, which I find to be very interesting. So I thought when I first looked at this that he would even have the right sides be the same oil and the left side be the same oil, but he actually went and did like a cross. So he did right front 425 oil, and then he went to the left rear and did 425 oil to get that cross feel. So he's getting more of a cross feel rather than, Ryan, if you're in here, I'd love to hear your mindset. If you have a quick, I know you have to type it, but if you have a quick description of why or what your mindset is on that, I would love for everybody to hear it straight from you, because I don't want to guess and then guess that wrong, obviously. But I did find that to be super interesting, because I would have expected it to be even 500 on the left side and 425 on the right side to let the car roll over on the right side more, or keep it pinned up over to the left side more, weird things like, or not even weird things, but different things like that. But he chose to actually do cross, which I thought was super interesting and definitely different, if not, maybe not different, but non-traditional, if you will, which I thought was pretty cool. And then, so chassis height is, getting the ride heights. He grabbed ride heights from the bottom of the car, and then I'll show you guys where we kind of everybody pick up the ride heights for each corner of the car. And then in the center here is a tire section. So he ran, obviously PT's is a quasi speed spec track or spec tire track. So he ran his Ryan Ralph red prep on quasis. He sanded the front edges, which I actually can show you guys what that means as well. And then the rears, he ran them on half treads, and he did 2 coats of prep the night before he went and raced. So that's kind of how to read his note there. And then we went over to kind of go over to the chassis location side here. So let me scroll down, make sure there we go. So the chassis side here. So this is basically where the front kickup is bolted to. And the way that you're looking at this can sometimes be confusing. So if you look at the bottom of your car like this right now, how you're looking at the car, you're looking at it the wrong way. Make sure that you're technically looking at the car from the top down, which you have, your battery, ESC, servo, everything is kind of in the way. So what I like to do is I will actually tip my car up onto the front of the car to the kind of the tail tank. And when you do that, you just have to make sure that you're doing everything backwards. Or what I like to do is, I can't really show you this on camera the way that I can. So what I like to do is I put the car on the front bumper and I look at the car down this direction. And when you do that, it's kind of you can transpose it onto the setup sheet like that. So I do see people getting that backwards sometimes. So that is a good thing to note when you're looking at how things are mounted onto the chassis. Make sure that you're looking at it in the correct orientation. So in this example, Ryan has his kick up to all the way to the far left instead of the right orientation. He's saying that the servo was flat, just like how it is on this car. Servo was into the second to last hole, just like how it is in my car right now. And then he ran a molded front battery locator as well as a molded rear battery locator. He laid the battery down, and then in this location where these dots are, he had it slammed all the way to the left of the car in the second set of holes. So like my car right now, for example, I have mine all the way slammed forward. So what we'll do is we'll move that back and we'll go through all this. Like I said, right now we're just going through this setup sheet and kind of learning how to read it together here. And then we'll start implementing changes here as we go. So going to the rear of the car, but staying in the orientation of the chassis here. So what he's saying in these back holes is the transmission location. So he has the transmission all the way to the back, just like how I have in this car. So these 4 holes here are these 4 holes here where my cursor is going back and forth. And I believe you guys can see my cursor. I can't tell. Kaylee, can you confirm that you can see my cursor moving? Do you see a cursor at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all that matters. Okay, so the battery location is, hopefully everybody can kind of see it wavering around. So the transmission location is slammed all the way back. Rear toe block. So on these toe blocks, as I'm sure most of you know, but we'll still go over it, these toe blocks have 2 different orientations that they can go into that can go onto the car. So you have the kit has a 3-degree variant as well as a 0-degree variant, and then left and right as well. Okay. Yeah, go there and then. Or I could do that, I guess. What I can do, what I'll do, guys, is I'll highlight this, and then that should show up. That box shows up pretty frequently, I would assume, or pretty prominent. So what I'm going to do, guys, I want to make sure everybody sees what I'm working on here. So, okay, and then let's see here. I want to go back, guys, as we keep going here. Ryan just commented and touched on the cross for the shock oil, so I want to make sure we talk about that. Ryan says the thinner right front, I feel jacks weight faster for a faster corner entry. The stiffer right rear lets the car rotate before the right rear sticks. Softer left rear lets the left rear stay planted longer on the entry and lets more weight go to the right rear on exit. So he's saying that the weight transfer of the car happens a lot smoother, easier, and faster with this orientation, is what Ryan's saying. The stiffer, it helps tighten the car up on exit by creating more left rear drive. Yep, that does make sense, Ryan. So basically what he's saying, guys, is when it goes around the corner, he's trying, almost like if you've ever seen a real life sprint car go around the track. What he's saying is it actually helps keep the car planted onto the left rear to where we're driving a little bit more off the left rear than we are the right rear, creating a tighter condition in the car. Because I know a lot of us have issues with, especially me, and I'm sure other people fight it. They have issues being loose coming off the corner. So I'm excited to try this so that when we get to the left rear is going to be a little bit tighter and you're driving off the left rear, so the car isn't wanting to go to the infield nearly as hard. And that's what having a softer left rear and a softer right front does. It allows this cross, and we can cover that on weights as well, but it allows more cross into the car. And if that makes sense, hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And if it doesn't, let me know and we can dive deeper into that. And go from there, because I know everything's kind of top level. We're going to be online tonight as long as we need to be to help everybody that we can and help explain any and everything that we can, from setup sheets to get this set up on this car. And so please make sure you guys are putting a bunch of comments in, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. And Ralph, the creator of this setup as well, is also in here to help out as much as he can. So appreciate Ryan doing that. Okay, so let's go back over here to the chassis plate section. So I'm going to actually highlight this so you guys can see a little bit more. So we're talking in this section right now. We talked about moving the transmission all the way back. And then on the toe blocks, Ryan's saying that he has his left rear into the 3-degree orientation, and he has the right rear in the 0-degree orientation. So if you guys can see in here, hopefully this will pick up. Oh, yep. So let me switch this. I have a camera kind of back and forth here to be able to make this happen. There we go. So now it should be full screen for everybody. Thank you, Kaylee. So this 3-degree orientation is the toe block right here. So hopefully I can show that and it'll pick up. There's a 3 right here by my finger. If you guys can see the tip of my finger, there is a number 3, and then there in the bottom here towards the back of the car, there's a 0. There's a lot of going on in here with a drive shaft and axles and everything and camber links. So I apologize for it being kind of messy. But what I can do, is here. Let me pop camber link off and see if I can show this a little bit better. And we'll go back to the Ryder saying hi. Hi, Ryder. This is Ryder saying hi, he says. Okay, so let's get this popped off, guys.
When you're working on a certain area, if you're going to sit there in one area at a time.
Yeah. Hold on just a second, guys. I'm trying to get all this junk out of the way. Not junk, but all this stuff out of the way so we can see it a little better. I didn't want to take the car too far apart so that everybody could see everything still. So let me go back to this view. There we go. So as we can see in here, get all this out of the way. Hopefully you guys can see that this toe block, it's just so darn hard to show. Yeah, it's just not going to show. But believe me, guys, the toe block, if you guys have a car already, it will be there, and that will make a lot of sense. So the left rear, it's very, very standard, very, very typical for a guy to run the +3 on the right rear. I'm sorry, on the left rear, and then 0 on the right rear. So +3 toe block on the left rear, 0-degree toe block on the right rear. And let's see, John Dannenberger has a comment. Give me just a second, John. Let me get this camera link back on here. The way I have my tail tank, it's kind of hard to get it popped off, so I just prefer to screw it on and off. John says, sorry, but a softer spring or shock will never plant a tire, ever. The only way to add load to a tire is a stiffer spring or shock. A softer left rear plants the right rear because it's the corner that gets the load when the weight transfers. So let me reread that. Let's see. Sorry, but a softer spring or shock will never plant. That is completely not right, John. And I'm sorry to argue with you, but that is not how that works. So when something is softer, it's going to transfer the weight to that corner significantly more. And when you stiffen something, it's actually picking it up. So you actually have it backwards. When you lock something down or crank something down, you're actually picking it up rather than letting it sit and actually plant. And we can continue keep going over that. That is something that I struggled with for a long time because I kind of think about it the same way you did, John. And it's backwards on how that works. When something's softer, it allows you to plant and rotate that weight over. And when you move the weight over, you create plant, and you're actually unloading the opposite corner. So if you plant the right rear, you're actually unplanting the left rear, which would, if you plant the right rear harder, what you're doing is you're actually making the car looser because you're driving harder off of the right rear. So opposite, when you plant the left rear, you're tightening the car up. And again, we can continue going over that. No problemo there. So let's go back to the setup sheet though, guys. And I can zoom in. Kaylee says we need to zoom in a little bit. So we can do that. And then, so here's the toe blocks that we're referring to. And 3, so the toe block is 3 in right now plus 0. And then, so the way that this reads is his left rear total is 11 in and his right rear is 2 out. So what you're going to do with that, or what that is basically saying, is you got to do some quick math. So on the right rear, if he's at 0 but he's a total of 2 out, you're going to go to 2 on the arm because there's nothing to add. But if you already have a 3 toe block in the left rear and you're going to 11, then that means you have to go way out. So basically he's full tilt 8, 9, 10, 11. So he's all the way maxed out on toe in on the left rear. And that's how that reads. So basically, if you have a 3, and then so you're 3 plus whatever's on the arm for the left rear, and when you have 0, if anybody ever runs 3 on the right rear for whatever reason, then you would add that to your total as well. But so you have 3, and then so don't go. First off, the arm won't let you go to 11. but the arm will let you go to 8 plus 3, and that's where he's getting his 11. So he has max toe in on the left rear, and then there's just some battery and motor information for where he was geared. So it looks like he ran an 8127 for the pinion. And then he also has some ESC settings. So it looks like he was running 25 degrees of boost. His starting RPM is at 11,000, and then his max RPM was at 27,000. And then he did that with a Hobby Wing Legacy ESC. Freewheeling was off. Drag brake was at a 10. Drag brake frequency was at 2. And then drive frequency was at 16,000 with a throttle rate of 15. So there is chassis work there. So now we can go over to our rear suspension, and we'll talk about that. So first thing right up top, let me work on getting this camera out of the way. I'm just going to turn the camera all the way off, guys. That way it'll be a lot easier to see. There we go. We're not worried about seeing the car at the moment, I don't think. So, okay. So here we are we're to rear suspension, guys. So we're in the rear suspension section. Camber on the left rear was 2 degrees out, and then on the right rear, he is 2 degrees. Let's see, 2 degrees in. So, Yep. Okay. And then he ran a brass. Camberlink mount. And then as far as spacers go, up here in the top left, I could drag. There we go. So up here on the inner left rear camberlink, he had a 3mm shim, and on the outer camberlink on the hub, he had a 3mm shim. And then basically what you can do, and then we can also see where he mounted the shock, second to the highest on the middle row. And then now what I should be able to do, though, is bring up this and put it back up so we can see a little bit. And then, since we've talked about all that, he had a 7mm hex on both right and rear. And then on the right rear, on the inner camber link, he had 3mm. And on the outer, he had a 1mm shim. And then he had no spacers on the camber mount. He ran his axles in the middle hole. And then let's see, hub location. So on the left rear hub, he had the hub all the way forward. The arm location on the chassis was spaced forward. And he had the shock on the inner hole. On the camber link, on the inner camber link mount, he had it all, basically making the camber link as long as you possibly can. And then on the right rear, he had the hub location forward and arm forward as well. And then on the inserts, he had the center inserts in both hubs. 7mm hex there. He had aluminum hubs. Those are checked right here and here on the bottom of this page. And then he ran 2mm of droop on the rear of the car. And then we will cover that as well. And then at the very bottom here is wing notes. So this is from the left side of the car is that image. So he ran the wing in the same location that I have it right now, as well as noting where the slider post is. And then same thing for the front of the car. Front wing is right there. And then we can go over to transmission. Looks like he had a Mike Murphy Super Diff ball diff, and a layback. So that is kind of a setup sheet, guys. Does anybody, before we go over to the car and how to implement all this, does anybody have any questions? How to read a setup sheet? What could what is? Do you guys do anything different on your setup sheets? Is anything ever not always not like this? So any questions before we go over to the car? And it looks like John commented again. John says, "How do you press down the same amount on a softer spring and plant that tire harder? You could run a 1 pound left rear spring and it's not going to plant the left rear tire. You said it correctly. A softer left rear spring removed load from the left rear tire and frees the car up because it's adding load to the right rear." I think we have a differing opinion here, John, because I did not say if you soften the right rear, you're planting the right rear harder. If you would put cranks into the right rear, you're standing the right rear up. If Ryan's in here and could give input, I don't want to continue to say I'm wrong if John's saying that I'm wrong, but unless I am not understanding what you're saying, John, and I want to make sure that I am understanding it, but if you make it less stiff where it falls onto the left rear, more weight and everything is going to be transferred over to that left rear. Where if you crank weight into the right rear, you're transferring weight to the left side of the car. So if you were to put turns into the right rear spring, you are going to tighten the car up. Where if you soften the left rear spring and let it get over onto the right rear harder, you're going to loosen the car up. Just like on the left rear, if you crank it down, you put turns into the left rear, you're going to transfer weight over to the right rear of the car, creating the car to be looser. Where if you take turns out of the left rear and let weight transfer over to the left rear more, you're going to make the car tighter. Stiffer spring loads the tire more. Stiffer spring, so turns down onto the right rear. So if you put a crank in the right rear, you're loading the tire more. Yeah, I've got cross weight, and lighter weight shock oil will allow the tire to drive into the track faster than heavier weight oil. Yes. I'm wanting to make sure that I'm understanding everybody correctly here on how I'm doing this. Because I don't want to tell anybody the wrong thing. We have a set of scales here. Like if I wanted to free the car up, I would put a turn in the left front to transfer weight to the right rear. Or if I put a turn in the right rear, it's going to go to the left front. It's going to pick the car up and go to the left front. Just like how Ryan's saying, if you have a softer left rear, you're going to get, and then we're back to talking cross weight again, guys. We're talking cross weight from left rear to right front, and that's where Ryan's saying that he's getting his oil, or that's where Ryan's saying he's running softer oil, is he's able to speed up that cross. So let me go back to Ryan's comment. So here's Ryan's comment. The thinner right front, I feel, jacks the weight faster for a faster corner entry. So he's saying the thinner right front allows the car to dive over onto the right front, get the car down, to let the car just dive onto the right front faster. The stiffer right rear lets the car rotate. The stiffer right rear lets the car rotate because the right rear sticks. Yes. Okay. So I feel like everybody's saying the same thing right now. Softer left rear lets the left rear stay planted longer on the entry. So it keeps everything down. And lets more weight go to the right rear on exit. Keeps the left rear planted longer on entry and lets more weight go to the right rear on exit. The stiffer left front, which is 500 weight oil, helps tighten the car on exit by creating more left rear drive. The stiffer left front helps tighten the car on exit. The stiffer left front the stiffer left front would be keeping the left front up, planting it onto the right rear. Which would loosen the car. It's called crossweight. The lighter weight shock oil will allow the tire to drive into the track faster than heavier weight. And I agree with that. Thank you, Rob. Okay. Well, what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to keep moving forward here. I'm going to get some more clarification on that. John, thank you for your input and your comments. I want to look into this more, because I certainly don't want to argue, and tell everybody the wrong thing for sure. So, right now we're going to continue looking at how to implement a setup sheet, and we're going to handle it that way. And then from there, we'll put out a video or something that kind of clears this up, because I want to make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward as far as giving everybody information. So we're having between 30 and 50 people in here, so I want to make sure that we have all of the right information that we can. So right now we're going to, and I'll talk with Ryan more and get a better understanding, so I can understand where his mindset's at, and then we can go from there. Right. Stiffer means weight transfer. I agree with that totally, Greg. So if you're stiffer in one corner, you should be pushing it over to the, but okay. All right. We can keep moving forward. Does anybody have any questions on the setup sheet? And like I said, we will go back. Hopefully Ryan's in here and can clarify a little bit. If he's not, then I shouldn't have even done a video with his setup sheet if I couldn't have had him in here, and that's my fault. So I apologize on that, guys, but yeah, is what it is. So does anybody have any questions about setup sheets, or how to read them, or how to go about them? And then we can get into kind of implementing that a little bit more. Let's see here. Steve says, can you show a camera view of the inner front camber link mounts? Are the front mounts the same height? The left front is not flipped. So let's make sure he ran them both in the high orientation for the inner front camera link mounts. Yep. Okay. So yes, let me switch cameras here, and then I'm going to see if I can actually zoom in and get the best view possible here. So let's go there. And hopefully you guys can see that. And if you can't, it's going to have to be from that orientation. Trying to get you not just so much of a top-down view, guys. So when it's saying high on here, if you guys can see, Dennis, what is up, man? Good to see you. So here, guys, let me just pop this off really quick. Let me go back to the setup sheet page, and let me pop this one of these camber links off really quick, or camber link mounts. And then what we can do is I can actually show it, and it'll make a lot more sense, because I don't want it to be confusing, as confusing as it already is for everybody. And it's 2 quick bolts, and I can get them out here. So there we go. And I will leave the camber link in it, guys, so everybody can see a little bit better. Okay, here we go. So let's go back to this now. Boom and boom. So the camber link mounts onto the car just like this, and I took it off the car so you guys can see better. So it mounts up into the car like this. So what that's saying is, bring it back here. So as you can see, there's a like a platform or a riser right here on this camber link. So you're raising it up so you can see how the camber link's mounted onto this. So you're mounting it in its highest orientation, where if it was upside down and I had the ball stud coming out the other direction, that would be considered the low. That would be in the low orientation, because this would be on the other side. So that's where high and low is going from there. So hopefully that makes sense. Yes, so both sides are up. Yep, sorry. So I took off one side, but yes, both sides are up and both sides are equal. And then that's where you get into spacers and whatnot. I have 2mm spacers on the car currently on both ball studs, and then you can go from there. But yes, both are up and both are standard in that orientation. And then if you were going to run them low, you would run them low. You would flip that. You would flip this mount over where the ball stud was coming through the other. The ball stud was coming through the other direction. So hopefully that answered your question, Steve. Hunter Dixon said, random question, what screw kit are you running, tie or stainless? Everything on here right now, Hunter, is stainless, and I actually built this kit myself through ordering quite a few. I kind of went through the kit and got the sizes of everything, and then I actually went on McMaster-Carr and bought kits of kind of each size that lives in that kit. And then that way that allows me I have plenty of extras if anybody at the track needs anything, or so I can help them in that way. So that is where they are stainless. I did not want to go the tie route and spend the kind of tie money. But so I did go with stainless on everything. Hopefully that answers the question. Dennis says he's late, but he made it. So thanks for coming, Dennis. I appreciate you being in here. Cool. All right. So let's go back to setup sheet here. And so some of this stuff is relatively self-explanatory, guys. what I want to focus on tonight is droop, as well as um, I want to focus on droop, and then we can kind of focus on ride height here, um, ride height as well afterwards. So what I want to do is let's start with droop and try to get some camera angles so that we can see what we're doing. So I can go there and let me zoom back out. And if anybody has any questions as we go, just please drop them in there, and we will, and I'll answer questions as we go. And again, I know between Greg, Rob, Sean, and John, I want to make sure that we get the right. I want to make sure that we get the right information here, because I want to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn and saying something that is not correct to everybody, because the last thing I want to do is pass along false information. So William Miller says, why is his end RPM 27,000? So basically that's telling you gear, or where his gearing's at, essentially, with the 8127. So you can plug your hobby wing in and actually get what that end RPM is, and the ESC will read that starting and ending. So that's more telling you guys, to make sure that the gearing and everything is correct. So, all right. So droop, guys, here we go. I want to, let me see. Actually, this might make more sense. Hang with me for just a second, guys. Let me see if I can make you all sick first, and then get this down here to where I may actually tell you what. Let's go here. Sorry, you guys are staring at my ugly mug for a second. And see if we can't get a little better angle and view here. So we're going to talk about droop first thing. So what I like to do, I use this J Concepts. Oops, I need to turn AI tracking off somehow. That So I use this J Concepts 30 millimeter ride height and droop combo gauge. And with the 30 millimeter droop, I actually 3D printed a 30 millimeter droop block that kind of can serve as somewhat of a car stand. So the car is nice and consistent on there all the time. And then I'll actually kick my setup wheels. Shout out Mr. Izzy for these setup wheels that he hooked me up with. And I'll set those up to where they're up off the ground. Check some comments here. Dave says independent rear suspension will respond differently to spring, oil, weight transfer differently than a solid rear axle. Toy cars are not like real cars in that aspect. Yes, I agree with that completely, Dave. I'm with you. So, okay. So droop, guys. So what I like to do here, let me see. Can we actually zoom out a little more? Zoom that out a little more. There we go. So what I like to do when we're setting droop, you have the car set up. You can do it with, I kind of like to do it without these setup wheels on, but since we already have them on, they look like they may be touching, but they're free. They're not touching the setup board. So just so everybody knows. And then something else that's to keep a note, if anybody in here is new, you want to do this on the flattest surface that you possibly can. That's very, very important and allows you to have a much more consistent setup. So that is a big deal to be able to set all this and do all this correctly. I have it on one of our Scale Labs setup boards, and then we can go from there. So just so everybody knows. So what I do is I like to cycle the suspension a couple times to get it to relax. And I tell you what, I actually lied to you guys. Let's just go ahead and take all of this off. That way we can view it better, and then we'll put them back on when we go to set. Ride heights, we can go about it like this. So the Team GFRP, if you have a Team GFRP car and you have the setup blocks and droop gauges and everything, their setup blocks are 20 millimeters, but we're going to all get to the exact same end result. So keep that in mind. Just because I'm on 30, that is I'm on 30 because of the gauge that I use. If you have Team GFRP setup equipment, you're just going to be on 20 mil, but we're all going to get to the exact same result here. So what I like to do, and where I pick up on my droop, is let me zoom in here. I'm going to try to get you guys the best shots that I possibly can. Need to work on some of our camera angles here for sure. So there we go. So we're actually going to set our droop off of the right rear first, and we're going to set it up off of the bottom of the rear part, or the bottom part, however you want to look at it, of the front arm. So right now it is somewhat hard to see that because of the steering being in the way. And then let's rotate this around. There we go. Perfect. So the rear bottom portion of the front arm is right here. And that is where we're going to pick up our droop from, is right here. So we'll take our droop gauge. We're on a 30 millimeter block. We're on that 30 millimeter block because we use this J Concepts ride height and droop gauge. GFRP has one. I believe Custom Works has one as well for you CW guys. So basically what we're going to do, and bear with me guys because I'm doing this through the camera, which can be difficult sometimes. So I like to cycle the suspension, get it to relax in its natural state, and then you can come in and put your droop gauge right there. And then so on this J Concepts one, for example, we're looking at this center number where the dot and line is. So right now this car is at 4 millimeters of ride height. And what that's basically doing is that 30 millimeters is being absorbed or being accounted for by that 30 millimeter block. And so that's where the 4 millimeters is coming in from. So as you can see, that line is, let me have something pointy. So you can see the line and the dot is right here, and we're setting droop. So we're going to go to the droop side of our gauge. This side of our gauge is for ride height. This side of our gauge is for droop. So we're right here, as you guys can see. So we are 4 millimeters right there. So boom, perfect. And luckily enough, that is the same ride height as what Ryan's setup sheet is. So we can go back in here and we'll zoom into the front section here. So Ryan's PT setup is 4 millimeters as well, and that's the same as what I ran my last time at the race that I just ran this last weekend. So, cool, perfect. Any questions on picking up droop from the front of the car? We're about to go over to. We just did the right front. We'll go over to the left front now. But any questions or anything on how droop is set or anything or measured or anything like that, and then how that relates to the um, setup sheet. And I'll give you guys just a second. Anybody who's typing away. I want to make sure that everybody's getting the information that they need. Okay, so we have no comments. So let's go over to the right front, and it is the same. Everything is the same as we did on the left front here, guys. So let me get this out of the way so we can see it a little better. And we're picking it up on the same. Everything is the same. So we're going to pick up right here, right underneath here, and that's on the front arm, the bottom side of the front arm, right there. Dennis says, is that positive or negative? Positive or negative? Oh, for droop is okay. So that would be positive, Dennis. Typically, you're not going to want to see those. Typically, you're not going to see droop past 0 on the negative side of things, especially for loose dirt. So that is, well, depending on how you want to read it, it's positive on the gauge under the chassis. So it's 4 millimeters under the chassis is how we would describe it. I wouldn't say positive or negative because depending on how you look at it or would describe it, but it is 4 millimeters below the chassis, which I would call that positive, but I could see where somebody could call it negative as well. So same thing here, guys. We're going to stick this in here. And I'll show you guys with the gauge. Sorry, again, I'm doing this through the camera, so sometimes it is not the smoothest transition. So we get it balanced just like that. And then I can zoom out, drag this over. So that's what we're looking for with this J Concepts gauge. I do not have a GFRP gauge with me to be able to show the GFRP way, but it is the same situation other than on the steps. So there we go. And so it's also at 4. So anything to answer Dennis's question, anything that would be below 0 for droop would mean that it is above the chassis, where anything above 0 means it's lower than the chassis. And I will actually, let me take this out from underneath the car, and what we can do is I can show you guys and explain kind of how that works. So as you can see, it's way up right now. This gauge is way up. So obviously the lower on that side of 0 is way up in the air, and the further up that the gauge goes, the lower, the closer essentially it is to your setup plate. So let me cycle that and show you guys. Does that make sense, Dennis? Hopefully. So as we cycle it, that's the lower it is. So, but there we go. So hopefully that makes sense. If that doesn't, feel free to comment and let me know what you think. So then we're going to look back. Now we'll go to the rear of the car, and it is pretty well the same situation. So we're going to go to the outside of the arm here. I have seen guys measure both from back here. The gauge. Okay, so yeah, good call, Greg. So the gauge does word that as it's in a negative state. So we will go with that. So good call. Yes, good call, Greg. You're 100% correct. I actually just didn't even catch that. So when we're up like this, guys, so anything above 0 is negative. Anything above 0 is positive. So great catch on that, Greg. And thank you for calling that out. Ryan says, how thick of blocks are you using to hold the chassis plate? So what I'm using, Ryan, is this gauge requires a 30 millimeter droop block. So I actually went in, designed and 3D printed my own droop block. So it is exactly 30 millimeters thick. So that's what I'm using. I know that I'm not sure if you just got in here or not, but all of the GFRP ones are 30 or are 20 rather. So that is, but we're all achieving the same thing. So, and then Dennis says, yes, thanks. Some guys say negative. Yeah. So it is negative, according to the gauge, Dennis. And then Ryan is good to go. Cool. I had some of these bolts back out on me here. Everything's a little on the loose side. Cool. Okay. All right, guys. So then the same thing is going to be true for the rear. So I have actually seen guys measure from the rear of the arm here, and I've also seen guys measure from the front of the arm. The only time that would be affected would be during if you're running posi or anti-squat, like a shim in the rear under the toe blocks, to where you can skew this. And in that case, then the rear, the very back of the arm is where I would say to measure from. So I will just use it consistently all the way across and measure from the rear there as well. So again, first thing I do, cycle the suspension. And let's see, Chris says you need to make me one of those blocks. If people are interested and want them, we can absolutely fire the 3D printer up and make some. I have also looked into doing some creative, parts tray billet options as well that are 30 millimeters thick. So be on the lookout for that down the road potentially. But yeah. So again, let me move things over the best that we can. Hopefully you guys can all see this really well. Pick up. It's just so darn hard to see, guys, without. There we go. Okay, so right now I'm at -1 on droop. Lane Hyatt said he would buy one too. Cool. Well, if you guys are really interested, we can definitely make some. I know quite a few guys that have these J Concepts gauges, so we can certainly look into that and try to provide that value. Yeah. Josh Anders says, dollar sign, dollar sign, dollar sign. Them are them high dollar blocks. They're just 3D printed blocks. We could make them pretty easily. But like I said, some of the billet options that I've been looking at, for example, just to give everybody a little sneak peek in the background, something like that that is 30 millimeters thick that could hold a bunch of stuff as well. Just an idea. You get into situations there though where if you have anything sticking out the top of it, then it makes it kind of useless and it's only a parts tray. So, and then Ryan says at this point he thinks that we need to get taller blocks. I agree, because of either the brass weight discs and or the carbon, just to keep stuff out of the wheels a little bit more. I don't run them on my cars right now. I used to have a weight disc out here on the left rear, but yeah. Let's see. Dennis says, so when you use 30-degree blocks and it reads less, it will be negative reading. So where we're getting the negative reading from, and Greg called this out. So again, thanks to Greg for pointing this out, but the negative is up. So negative is on this side of 0. So it's labeled negative here. And positive is down here on this side of 0. So right now, if we zoom in onto the gauge, and we zoom in onto the gauge, we're at -1 of droop. So hopefully that makes sense, Dennis. So as you can see, the negative symbol right here versus the positive symbol right here. And we're on the negative side of 0. So negative meaning that it is below the chassis plate. And then anything positive basically is above the chassis plate is how that's reading. Or a way to look at it. So okay, cool. So then when we pull it out, you can see it goes way up because the arm is way up, or way down because the arm's way up. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, we can go through it a couple more times. Dennis says he fully understands. Cool. Beautiful, Dennis. Thank you for asking the question, though. I do appreciate you. And then let's go back to the setup sheet for a second. Any questions thus far, guys? So he's at 2 millimeters of droop. So what I would do in this scenario, he's at 2 millimeters of droop across the rear. So some may ask, how are we going to achieve that? So hopefully this doesn't. There we go. So how are we going to achieve that? So how we're going to achieve that, guys, is, let me put this back up here for a moment. I need to get a shorter bracket for when we're not we got all kinds of stuff we can do. So okay, so right now the car is at 1 millimeter of droop, of negative droop, and what we need to do is get in here and make to where we are at 2 millimeters. So we need to actually drop the arm down 1 millimeter. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to do that by lengthening my shock eyelet on both sides of the car. And I can do that pretty quickly and easily. I just pop the shock off, take the spring cup out, spring off, and then it is as simple as, anytime I take the shock off, it's always a good time while you're maintaining to clean up the seal and that shaft and everything. And then I want to lengthen this shock eye. So GFRP actually makes a tool you can put on. Oops, let me raise this. GFRP actually makes a tool that you can put on your rod end or your eyelet here and turn it. What I like to do is I actually just put a wrench in, and I'm going to back it out one turn. And then, okay, so Greg, yeah, he could have said, or look, I'm sorry, I meant Tommy's first. Is there anything you would run more droop on the left rear versus right rear, or always the same on both sides? I'm sure guys have tried things like that, Tommy. I personally haven't. I have always ran, if I'm going to run one, anytime, uh, anytime I've ever done the setup, and I'm on the basic side of setups right now, as I'm still trying to get speed on my own personal program. But so I'm sure people have tried, but in that situation, I don't think there's a lot of times where you would have different droop heights. Um, Again, one person's opinion, and it's totally what guys are trying to achieve on feel. So Greg says he could have put negative on his sheet, but he knows it's negative. Yes, he could have, but it's one of those things. It would be incredibly rare to see this, um, to see it above the chassis on a loose dirt condition. When things go high bite or things like that, I know guys run them differently, but yeah. And then you get really really experienced guys, which I am not there yet, but guys will take straight edges, and they will actually take a straight edge from the chassis and just stick it out there and see where they're at with that. And that is because I know there are some guys that run, and then they'll look at they'll just they've been doing it for so long they can just eyeball what that height is and know if they're pretty close. Like right now, that rear arm is basically, we know we're 1 degree, or we're 1 millimeter off, so it's not quite touching, but it's just about touching on that arm. But again, I'm a numbers guy, so I always make my changes and go from there. So we're back to just change this. Sorry, you guys are kind of on the other side of the car, but I took one turn out of the rod end, and now we are at two. We're at 2 millimeter. Perfect. So we can cycle one more time just to double check, and then boom, we're at 2. So now we can do the same thing. Hopefully you guys can see everything real well. Come in, pop the shock off. Be careful. On personal experience, I do not recommend using the 1.5 millimeter wrench, because it is easy to break off when you're trying to pop that shock off. Ask me how I know, because I know. Uric, my main man, is in here. Every car I own on foam, rubber, left rear is always lower, longer, for me to keep the tire on the track as the car rolls, at least my thought process on it. So to go back to Tommy's question here, Tommy, I also prefer, like on my late model, I shouldn't say no or never on things, because on my late model, I actually do prefer more left rear droop than I do right rear droop. Um, and then like Uric saying on his foam and rubber tire stuff, the left rear is always lower, for him to keep the tire onto the racetrack, like when it rolls onto the right front. And that's kind of that is kind of Uric's thought process. Ryan says you lay it flat on the chassis and look where it lines up onto the outer hinge pin, half pin, bottom pin, etc. Speed checking your buddy. Yep, exactly, Ryan. And then Rob says, surprised you don't measure the shaft length before and after your droop. So, Rob, what I like to do is, when I am going through my setup, I do mark that down. It's not on Ryan's sheet. Is the only reason that I didn't touch on that. So, very good call. And I do, on all of my setup sheets, I do measure all of my shock lengths. I also measure the shock collars. Um, for the sake of this video and everything, and it not being on Ryan's sheet, that is why I didn't measure that. That is the only reason. And we can go into that more if need be. Ryan did measure his collars though, but we just haven't got to where we've touched on that part of it yet. But good call, Rob. I agree with you, and I do that on anytime I'm writing down my setup. Danta said, "What's up, Anthony? I'm assuming you're saying don't listen to Uric." We always listen to Uric. Everybody knows listen to Uric. William says, "If you ever see an MIP booth, they will replace it. I know from experience too." So yeah, cool. So William's done the same thing, and yeah, I hope I run across an MIP booth because that would be good. I need to buy another one. I got through the rest of my race day on Saturday, and probably will get through the rest of my race day this Saturday with the driver attachment. But yeah, so that was unfortunate. I'm glad I still have almost poked my eye out. And let's see. Dennis says, running on a high bank track, wouldn't you want more droop on the left rear to keep the left rear? So that was going to be another comment that I made as well. That's very, very good, Dennis, and a great insight and great opinion as well. That's more from the big car side of things, but would work here too. And to Uric's point, yes, you can accommodate for more roll. If the right rear tire is going to load up more on banking, if you're on a higher bank track, you can increase lower droop there to keep the left rear onto the racetrack. So yes, long answer short there, Dennis. Yes, you can. And if anybody has a GFRP setup sheet in front of them, while I have this shock off, what I can do is actually go through and show you guys where those measurements are taken. I'm actually relatively incredibly embarrassed with how I answered John's questions about answered John's statements about doing shock collars and weight transfer and cross weight and stuff, because I feel like I made everything very much more confusing. So yeah, is what it is. So I'll make sure that we make that right. So I apologize if anybody was in here and I didn't, if I said the wrong thing or anything like that. I want to make sure that we correct that. But okay, I'm going to go back to the setup sheet real quick, and I'm going to show you guys, since Greg brought up, Rob brought up measuring shocks. So let's go up here. So the GFRP setup sheet actually has a great diagram and it's right here, has a really good diagram of where we're measuring from. So on this length side, we're going to measure from center to center. You can kind of do it one of two ways. I'm going from the back bolt back here, and you're really kind of reaching, which I don't like doing. So what you can do is you can go center of the bolt there to center of the bolt there, and that will give you your shock length. So you're going center of the shock to center of the shock. And when I was in big car racing, I actually had little center to center finders that you could put in here. That might be another little easy 3D printing thing that we could do, is to be able to do that. But we can work on that as we go. So we're right at about 79 millimeters here. Hopefully the screen's not too small for you guys to be able to see, but yeah, so that is when it says shock length. That's the length we're measuring, is center to center with the shock fully extended. And then when you're measuring the collar, I'm running the big bore collars right now, but you're measuring from the shock, bottom of the shock cap, if you will. And then there's a There's a collar underneath where the shock cap sits. You're measuring from that to your actual shock collar. Mine right now is basically all the way up, so I won't be able to show you too much on how we do that, but the diagram shows it very, very well. So, okay, so I need to get another millimeter out, so I'm going to do a turn. And I backed it out because I wanted to make the arm longer to get a little bit more droop. And there we go. So we can cycle everything. And let's go back to full screen. Greg says his new Trek has 16 degrees of banking. Very cool. So that thing will have all kinds of banking in it. That's awesome. Very cool, Greg. Okay, so we'll go from here. Hopefully everybody can see. And I'm actually going to cycle. I like to cycle the suspension. We're setting on a 30 millimeter block. And now we're still at about 1. So I need to take a little bit more out. A little bit more out. Then we can go. There we go. So then we can throw the spring back on, throw the cup back on, and go from there. Pop everything back on, cycle the suspension, and boom, there we go. Right at 2 millimeters, perfect. So we have successfully matched droop directly to this setup sheet. So now what we can do is let's go through ride height. We've been on for an hour and a half already, guys. I know that I said we'll stay on as long as we need to, but I don't want to keep everybody on here all night. So we just set droop off of a setup sheet. And what we can do now is we will set ride heights and then we'll call it a night. I have a bunch of digging that I need to do to get some right answers or some answers corrected on things for you guys, and I want to make sure that I can go about that and really explain that properly. I almost think that I just misspoke, or I'm misspeaking and trying to summarize what Ryan is saying versus what John was saying. And I want to say that we're all saying the same thing, and I got my words mixed up, but I want to make sure that I am answering and doing everything correctly for you guys. And the last thing that I'm going to do is willingly put out false information. So hopefully everybody can understand and respect that. And we can go from there. So that is droop. And now we can go to ride height. These setup wheels are awesome, but you can also set camber off of them. So the wheel nut has to go back all the way inside of the plate, and it can make it a bear sometimes. Okay, there we go. So now we got everything on. So Rob, the maker of these setup wheels is Izzy. So let me. I don't want to butcher Izzy's. I don't want to butcher Izzy's middle or last name. Izzy Vallejo. Izzyllejo. And I don't know if he has doesn't look like he has his business or his 3D printing page up here. But Izzy's typically in here. I don't know if Izzy is in here or not. But if not, Rob, message the page and I will get you in touch with Izzy, because these things are awesome. And I know he makes a bunch of them. So, but we have all kinds of cool stuff to make for guys. We have 30 millimeter blocks that we can sell, and then Izzy makes the setup wheels. So he's a awesome guy. Anybody I think who comes across Izzy will love Izzy. He's a great dude. So all right, so let's go back to the setup sheet here, and we're going to focus. We're going to focus on chassis heights right here. So it looks like he went 15 in the left front, and it's right here. If anybody, let me highlight it. He went 15 on the left front, 16 on the right front, 16 on the left rear, 18 on the right rear. Mike Pasley, what's up, my man? Mike's in here. Yeah, Izzy is he's about as good as they come. So he is a great dude. Okay, guys. So here we go. So now we're going to check ride height, and these wheels, these setup wheels, simulate the fixed diameter exactly of one of these, one of the wheels that we run all the time. I just put a front wheel up there, but simulate perfectly what our wheels are in diameter, so it allows you to have a consistent setup each time. And okay, Anthony just said XLV Race Concepts is Izzy's business's name. So I thought that's what it was, but I couldn't remember if it was XL. I had XL in a different letter for some reason. I thought it was XLR. So cool. And I didn't want to say the wrong thing. So thank you, Anthony. XLV Racing Concepts is Izzy Vallejo's business. And tell him that the Scale Labs podcast sent you, and I'm sure that he would love to sell you some. So, all right. So we're going to set ride height here, guys. As you can see, we're looking down the rear of the car right now, and I will zoom in a little bit. So over here, we're at the right rear of the car. Everything is probably backwards to you guys, but we're over here on the right rear. The car is at ride height. I like to just kind of push down on the car, get everything set correctly, and then I will put my gauge right underneath the chassis right here. I'm doing this with the body off for video purposes, and so everybody can see. I know there will be arguments out there that the weight of the body. Thank you, Kaylee just tagged Izzy's 3D printing businesses page and his Facebook group into the chat here. So hopefully everybody can see that. But anyway, guys, so what we're going to do here, we're setting ride heights. We're on the right rear, and I like to check on the chassis right here. And then so where we are right now, we are at, so I am relatively high. I'm at 19. So he was at 18. So I'm about a millimeter too low, or too high rather. And how you can achieve that is we can either take rounds out of the shock collar, or we're going to take rounds out of the shock collar to get that to be set perfectly. So compress it again, and I back my shock collar basically all the way out. And there we go. So we're at 18 there. Perfect. So if you guys ever have anything to where, your ride heights are low, that's what you're going to change your ride heights off of your collars right here. No problem, Rob. Thank you. And again, make sure you tell Izzy the Scale Labs podcast sent you, or Scale Labs page sent you. He would love that. So, okay. So now let's flip this around, and we'll go to we'll check it on the left front. And where I like to check it is right around these holes. Make sure, so these holes are countersunk, so you want to make sure that you're not getting the gauge into those countersinks. So I typically like to go past them just a little bit. There we go. And then we are at 16. So this setup that I was running this past weekend at Kaminsky Dirt Bowl is actually pretty close to what Ryan had. So I'm right at 16. Don't need to make any changes. If I did, I can go up and down on my shot collar and get my ride height to raise or lower right there. So now we can scoot the car over. And now, let's see. Actually, I am a little bit high. I'm reading it backwards here because my car's backwards, so you guys can see it. So if I'm actually a millimeter too high. So I can take. I'm going to take a round out. Take another round out. We're shooting for 15. And there we go. So I took a round out, actually 2 rounds out, and that lowered the car over there. So we're at 15. So now we'll go over here. Same situation. We're going to take it. Just make sure you miss the countersinks. If you get into the countersinks, you don't want to get your gauge to where it's kind of misreading and leveling into the crater that's down there for the body post. It should be wide enough to skip over it, but just to make sure, I always just like to go past it just a little bit. And I am just barely off of 16. So I will put about a half a round in. Looks like I'll be able to get actually a full round in. And there we go, guys. So right at, now I'm at 16 for the right front. If anybody can, and let me actually zoom in because I know we were looking at different things last time. Whoops. There we go. And I can actually hang with me for just a second, everybody. I'll put it down here on ground level so everybody will be able to see it a little better. Little better. There we go. There we go. So as everybody can see now, we're no longer looking at the droop side of things. We're looking on this other side. And it is, so now you can see the numbers are progressive all the way up instead of positive and negative like on the droop side here. We're just progressive all the way from 5 millimeters of ride height all the way to 45 millimeters of ride height. As you can see, per our setup sheet, we are right at 16 millimeters of ride height on the right front of this car, which is fantastic. And then as you can see, it is right here as well. So 16 is what we're shooting for. And you just saw me set 15 right before that. So fantastic. And beautiful. So we can go ahead and zoom out. And then only thing we should have left to do is the left rear. I'll do it at an angle so hopefully everybody can see a little better. Again, make sure you kind of seat the car. And we're at 19 and we want to be at 16 over on the left rear. So we have some work to do on getting the car over there. So it looks like what I need to do to achieve that is I currently have big bore collars on. and that is kind of limiting me on what I can do as far as adjustment wise is concerned. So let me, because they're so much thicker, because they can accommodate both because they accommodate both spring, or yeah, they can accommodate both different springs from small bore to big bore. So what I can do is swap those out, and let me confirm. Oh, not really though, actually. Yeah, yeah, you can definitely get another millimeter or two out of that. So let me take these to achieve that. Let me get these off of here, and I'm going to put my small bore package on. And when I take this off, I'll go close up to the camera so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But there is a somewhat significant size difference. I know that I ran 19 across the rear. I know I ran 19 across the rear at my last race, and I had my shock collars completely maxed all the way up. So when I seen 16 and 18, I knew we may have some progress worked out for us. Okay, so let me see if I can get close enough for you guys to see this. So here is a big bore spring collar. And you can see that dual lip. So there's two different lips in there, where if you have a small bore spring collar, it kind of you take that entire rib out. You take that whole rib out. So that'll be very, very helpful to achieve this kind of lower ride height. And if not, then we'll have to play a little bit more on droop and things like that. We could also play with spring buckets if need be, if we get in a pinch, kind of past that. Oh, we got a couple comments. Rob Gumbert, what's up, man? Thank you for commenting. What dimension or what determines the height of your block you set the chassis on to check droop? So what sets that is actually the gauge itself. So my gauge is a 30 millimeter droop gauge, which is labeled right here. And then so like if you have a Team GFRP one, that's going to be 20 millimeters, and Team GFRP also sells blocks that are 20 millimeter droop blocks. And I have no problem. I would say this to Dustin's face. I don't care for the droop blocks myself, because I feel like them being the two blocks on the front and rear, I feel like you can knock the car off of them really easy. The couple times I've used other people's, so that's why I made this like essentially a car stand. And that is what has allowed me to, and it is 30 millimeters exactly in thickness. So this is the gauge, or this is the block that I use. So that's what's determined, though. It's just depending on what gauge you're using. GFRP is a 20 millimeter, and there are other ones out there. I believe Custom Works is also a 20 millimeter, but I use this J Concepts. That way I can use the same gauge for both. Which I guess you can for the other one as well. But I like to use this gauge. It's really nice and it's really useful, and I think it's a lot easier and more accurate as well, instead of like the step style gauges. Dennis says you're going to break your MIP tool. I know, Dennis. No kidding. But the 2 millimeter and the 2.5 millimeter they're both good. So. And then Greg, I think you're answering Bob's question for me there, so we're all on the same page. But does that make sense, Bob? Hopefully. Let me know. If not, we can definitely go deeper into it for sure. And then something else, guys. Like I said, if I don't know if anybody heard me mention, if I'm still struggling with this, rather than affecting droop and everything, I can pull out some, and I actually just don't have any different ones, but yeah, I can adjust with different spring buckets as well. The spring buckets will allow me to where I can go down more on the shock collar and be able to get more droop out of it via the shock collar. But hopefully this is enough to allow us to achieve that. Cool. Awesome, Bob. Glad that helped. So then we'll squeeze the car down, and there we go. So there, yep, we're right on it basically. We're a little bit high. We'll max it out. So to achieve this properly, guys, I'm going to have to put on the different spring buckets, which I would just need to get some. I may be able to pull them off my late model down here to show for example. But yeah, I'm at 17 now, so I got to lower it a little bit. So you can get a couple more millimeters if you need to out of your shock collars if you don't want to run you are going to lose some ride height adjustment if you're at the high end with these big bore springs. But let me look here. I can actually see on my late model. Looks like my late model has the same spring cups or spring buckets as well. So I'll have to buy some different spring buckets, guys. But they do make, I know GFRP makes like a deep well spring bucket, and that will allow you to essentially drop that spring to where the spring's lower on the rod end to where you can turn your shock collar down more. Bob, I guess we'll go ahead and say it here first. We haven't sold any as of yet, but reach out to the Scale Labs page, and I guess Scale Labs just made their first. I guess Scale Labs just made our very first product because there's at least 5 people in here or so that want these. So be on the lookout for these guys, and we'll make sure that we pair these 30 millimeter blocks with that gauge. So this is a Scale Labs product, and we will go from there. But yeah, so that's where we're at with it, Bob. And like I said, I do not like to use the blocks like that come with the GFRP ones, just because I feel like it's so easy to knock your car over. Where this, you can actually use it, and the car can be up off the ground. And with setup wheels and some of the droop that we run, it is. I mean, it's not touching. It looks like it is, but these aren't touching. But they're very, very, very close. So when you're setting droop, typically you like to take the setup wheels or any wheels or anything you have off, just to make sure that you have that clearance. Joshua Collier, what's up, man? Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. But that's where we're at, guys. Everything else on this setup sheet is also relatively self-explanatory. Let me go back to the sheet here. And it's kind of just follow along from that point. So you can copy directly when somebody's running springs. You can copy that directly. You can copy all of the locations. I don't think we need to go through and me change every single location that's different right now. I am going to do that throughout the rest of the week and just try this setup. But droop and how to set droop, and as well as ride heights, are kind of the big things that I wanted to touch on. Everything else, anybody who's ever worked on stuff before, Tommy Lee says he is also interested in our block. So cool, guys. Be on the lookout for that. I'll make a quick intro video to it here shortly, as well, and then we'll get a product page set up somewhere to where you can purchase them, and we can go from there. So, but yeah, is there any other questions, guys? I know I want to make sure that we're answering everything that we can. Again, I'm going to get a better answer on. I just want to hear from either Ryan or Dustin or somebody. I actually may make a phone call. I know Anthony's in here, as well as Doesn't show. Okay, Rob says he's surprised that the setup sheet doesn't show diff weights. Um, as far as okay, so that's something else that I do put on all of mine and all of my setup sheets, and I'll make sure that I start posting some of my setup sheets more, because believe me, guys, if my car goes around the racetrack, you guys, anybody can drive my stuff. So um, I have to. I try to have a really really nice handling car, and so I'll try to do a better job of posting some setup sheets as well. Um, and maybe even posting stuff that doesn't work. That way, you guys can save yourself some of the headache. But to Rob's point, what I like to do, Rob, is I will actually either in the notes section right here or in the transmission section where there's the Murph Super Diff over here, I will actually put what my diff tune number is. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. I appreciate the compliment. And yeah, we have some work to do on what things are doing when we turn shot collars, but I will describe that better. I'm doing a horrible job right now. I think we have a lot of guys that are all on the same page, but I want to make sure that we have that. Rob, oh, you're saying diff heights. Sorry. Um, so yeah, what you're saying, what the insert is on the case. That is a good question. I actually don't ever document that, hardly ever, but I just run the kit at 0 or the kit inserts, so I don't ever really mess with that, and I'm assuming that's why it isn't on Ryan's either. But I don't want to speak for Ryan. Bob, no problem. Thank you so much for coming by. I appreciate it. If you ever have any questions, make sure you message the channel. And like I said, if I don't have answers, guys, I'm never going to lead you guys astray. I'm more than happy to say that I'm screwing up or I don't know, and I will go get the right answer. So I'm terribly, terribly embarrassed that I feel like I don't ever want to give false information. So, but yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Like I said, the easiest way to kind of get screwed up, I feel like, is ride heights and droop. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of covered that. The rest of it really is, as we're going over this setup sheet, it really is self-explanatory. It's kind of put bolts in the right holes and put shocks in the right holes and ball studs in the right holes, and that's kind of it. Make sure all the inserts when you guys built your kits. Make sure you have the right inserts in. Make sure you have everything in that's just when you're copying a setup. That's kind of how it goes. So I personally, this is absolutely no shade to Ryan. I personally just like to put as much information as I can on here. Um, even more, I'll try to, I'll scale my car and put my scale weights on and things like that. So, but you can obviously get incredibly, incredibly close with this. So, but yeah, so guys, that's about it. We've been on here for 2 hours. I appreciate you all so much. We've basically had 40 viewers the entirety of this time, or if not more. I don't know if we ever hit 50. If not, we were really close. And I appreciate you guys very, very much. And we will try to keep doing this. Every Wednesday we'll be on and giving as much information as possible. So I tell you what, Joshua, we will do one for the late model next week. And then we don't necessarily have to have, we can have one of my setup sheets or whatever, and we can show it is the same in principle. It's all the same, but we can absolutely do one on the late model as well. I'll try to find. I believe Tyler Hooks, who was he was the last guy on the podcast. I believe his Chili Bowl winning setups were on, so maybe we can kind of copy his or something like that. So that might actually work out really well too. I feel like you guys are talking to my hands. Give me a second there. There we go. At least see my face. But yeah, we next week we'll do one for the late model guys, and I'll make a video kind of how I do, trying to talk about what we're going to talk about from the weeks to come. But thank you guys again. We've been on here 2 hours. Everybody needs to go to bed. Everybody's got work in the morning, so get out of here, guys. Thank you all so much. And if you guys have any questions or if anything was confusing, I know we had some issues there talking about shot collars and what putting turns and things do, and what having the lighter weight versus heavier weight and crosses and whatnot. So I'm going to go get a better answer, and then I'll shoot a quick video while I'm wrenching tomorrow, and hopefully that will make a little bit more sense. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate each and every one of you, and we will see you on the next Wrenchin Wednesday. Be on the lookout tomorrow. Episode 4 of the podcast will be out with Zach Gokin. I'm sure you guys have seen some of the highlights of his episode already that we posted, but his full-length episode will be out on all major podcast platforms tomorrow. So appreciate you guys. Have a great night. Thank you so much. Good luck this weekend. Be safe getting there. Be safe getting home. And if you have any questions, message the page. Thanks, guys. Bye.